Right, we're back. We're going to have a little play around today. Another on the spot kind of play around. Not planned. I was actually starting on a different video, but I changed my mind and thought I'd do this instead. So we are going to be using the UV resin for this one. And we're going with alcohol inks. And I'm going to try this Ocean White from Resin. It's a white pigment. Now we don't want too much of this because that will prevent the resin from curing properly. So what I'm going to do first is just mix up my white. So I'm just applying some of the UV resin into my mixing cup, like so. And then I'm just going to add a tiny amount of the white pigment, so much that it's not going to affect the curing. And then just thoroughly mix that in. I'll tell you what, that white pigment is really strong, so I've added some more clear UV resin to that just to blend that down a bit, because I don't want it to be soft and uncured. And then inside this glass bowl I've just got some hot water. It's not boiling, it is hot. I can put my finger in it with a glove and it's not going to hurt my finger. Make sure it is glass though, because if you use hot water with plastic sometimes it can crumple. So I'm just going to leave that to warm up. And now I'm going to do these one at a time, and excuse my mould because it is a test mould. So I'm just going to fill this. It is recommended 3mm at a time with UV resin, but you've seen me in the past. I just don't recommend you do it yourself. We're not going to fill it right up because we do need to seal everything in afterwards. And then I'm just disturbing any bubbles that are stuck, and I'm pushing that UV resin out to make that proper heart shape inside the mould. You can use a long nose lighter to get rid of those bubbles. And now comes the part that I'm nervous about. Alcohol inks in UV resin don't always give us great results because UV resin doesn't like alcohol inks. Now some of you will probably have a different opinion on that. I'm just going by my experiments so far. And on the next heart I'm going to warm up both parts of resin just to see what kind of a difference we get, because I want to see some pulling, and I don't think that's going to happen with this method because I haven't warmed up both parts. So it's not going to contract the way that I want it to, similar to how a 3D flower bloom works, but we're going to get a kind of cloud effect anyway. So I'm just adding a nice amount, and I'm just going to wait a minute and just see if those do move at all, which I don't think they're going to. And you can see they haven't moved at all. So all I'm going to do with this one is just stir in that white pigment, and we've got a nice pattern going on in there. And I'm just going to cure that under my lamp for 2 minutes. And now I've got a separate cup of clear UV resin, and I'm going to put that in the bath back with the white to warm that up for about 40 seconds. So you will see that has lowered the viscosity of the UV resin as it's warmed up. So we just repeat what we've done. I didn't mix up enough for this one. Hopefully we'll get some different results. Again, I'm just going to spread that so it kind of comes out a little bit more, so the UV resin is a bit more shallow. And then I'm just going in with an azure blue on this one. And again with our whites, we just repeat the same thing, and I'm hoping it's going to pull in as the resin begins to cool down over the next minute. If it does, I'm not going to stir it. I'm just going to see what happens. It may not work, but regardless, I think we're still going to get some good results. This is why I love just playing around sometimes. And it hasn't really moved at all. You can see this one has pulled in a bit. They've started to. You can just see, if you look carefully, You can just see it has pulled in a bit. Now I have done mini blooms in UV resin with this method, but I think because these blobs are a little bit larger, it's struggling to be pulled. But I'm going to give it another minute. No, it's not really doing what I wanted it to do. So it's going to look very blobby if I just leave that as it is. So we're going to get that similar design to what I just did in the first one, which is kind of like the pen effect that you've seen in previous videos. But because some of it has drifted, it might have a more 3D effect. So because I didn't get what I was hoping for the video, I'm just going to carry on with different colours. This is the purplish red. So I'm just going to repeat what I did with the first video. First piece. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks. Thank you very much. And we will be back shortly with the next stage. So in this one we're going with a purple, and I am now just dropping one, well that was two. It's meant to just drop one colour into the middle. So I'm worried if the alcohol ink goes too far to the edges, we're going to have trouble sealing that in if it doesn't dry properly. And now with this one I want some bigger blobs. So I'm using a different tool. I want them to stay in one place though, not scatter around like that second one did. And I made a right pig's ear of that one. This is why it's great, just to show that not everything can be perfect. So I forgot to say that I'm no longer warming my white resin. This is just at the same viscosity now as the resin that I'm pouring in, because I don't think it's making a difference. So I'm now using a stirring stick to get those bigger blobs, because the other tool wasn't really working. Hopefully we'll get some different effects. And that colour is just a peach red, just in case you are wondering. Really nice swirls. So this one was a magenta, and I've just crammed in as much of the white as I can. And then I'm just going to swirl the whole lot into the middle. So that's a dark indigo, but what I found is I just mixed up some more white, and for some reason this one is beginning to pull in a lot better, which is what I wanted originally. So I'm just going to cover that and just see what it does. I think the pigment could blob, but it's an experiment. So I'm just going to use the lid from my release spray and then just leave that for a few minutes and see what happens. So that was what I wanted, and I didn't warm my resin at all, either the resin that I put in or the resin that I added. It has just formed that that pattern. So I'm going to cure that one, and then we're going to do one more test run, but we're going to swirl the middle. I think we could be onto something here. So I'm going to do the experiment again in this one. But what I'm going to do differently is add some smaller ones around the middle area first, because I think the larger ones are going to pull over the back of these possibly and create a better effect. And again, this is just an experiment. This is just my brain working overtime, thinking this could be something I haven't seen done before. If it has, I do apologise. And now I'm just going to add the bigger blobs around the outside, and hopefully they'll pull inwards in a different way. And then I'm going to do the same and cover it for about 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm getting in such a kind of multitasking scenario that I forgot to swirl the middle of that one. So this is what can happen with alcohol inks. And if it doesn't cure through properly, it can kind of erupt into this yucky mess. But I'm hoping we can somehow salvage that. I'm not sure how yet. So I'm just pushing that kind of mounting down back into the resin, and then just try and cure that once it's kind of oozed out. This is not what we want, but it's the only one that has done this. And I think it is because all of that pigment has pulled inwards and the UV light is having trouble penetrating through. So I've just uncovered this one. I'm going to swirl the middle and then quickly cure that, because I've created some negative space in there for the UV to be able to penetrate through. So you will see that one has done the same. Now I need to work out within the next few minutes what's causing that. Is it the alcohol ink or is it the pigment paste? Now I have a funny feeling it's the alcohol ink. Where it's pulling inwards, the alcohol ink is really not reacting well to the UV resin. So I'm going to come up with a way around this, and I'm going to show you. Liquid dyes, but we need to mix them in with the UV resin. If we drop this on the back of the resin the same way we did with the alcohol inks, it's not going to cure. So that one I'm going with a red, and this one with a yellow. So it's just a case of applying our colour. Same way. It doesn't spread the same as what alcohol inks do, that is the negative thing. And once we have the colour in, we can just apply our white. You can do it over the top of the colours if you want to, or just on its own. And we're going to repeat that and just cover it. So whilst the liquid dye experiment is running, I'm just backing these with another clear coat of resin. But you could add glitter, anything you want. So the dyes didn't work. They didn't put in as much as I wanted. It's not terrible. So for this video, I'm kind of leaving that alone now. I've tried it in a couple of these, and the alcohol inks are just really not reacting with the UV. With these ones it was a bit different because they weren't pulling in because I was curing the resin quick enough. So this one, I know, I've looked underneath, has got a bubble, because that's just one of the things that happens with UV resin and alcohol inks. It just really does mess up the curing process. But you can see the potential for this. So my next stage, or my next step, is to do this with 2-part resin, because it will work. And I forgot to top this one up. And there you can see, even with a second layer, the alcohol ink still had a bit of a war with my resin. But that is such a cool effect. Really like the way that's pulled inwards. Let's go with the ones that we did first, without that flowery effect. Oh, this was the peach red one. It's gone a bit yucky. I always struggle with the peach red. Going a bit of a muddy colour. So this one we did, and we didn't get any eruptions. So just play around with it. It's better, but the middle's a bit messy. It's something to play with. Let's go with the first one that we did. And these are solid now. Not sure. What do you think? My neighbour's dog's barking in the garden. Let's go with the blue one. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment. If you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. That's better. Much better detail in there. As I said, you could back these however you want. Let's go with this one down here. That's better. And the last one we crammed in as much as we could. A couple of blobs in the middle, but that is really, really nice. Right. Sorry I didn't give you the perfect results that I was aiming for, but I kind of, as I said, made this up as I went along to try and get some different effects. And there we have them. Right, I will see you for the next one. Bye for now.